Erica Shea. Welcome back to Seeing Other People.
I'm so excited to be back. It's just like, it feels like the right thing.
There are a few reasons that you're back.
I
One,
mean,
because we have a lot to catch up on.
we
Things are
do.
different.
Yes.
Things are different. Two, your episode was literally one of the most listened to episodes of 2022.
Which I'm like really honored because like there's in no way that I'm an expert at this. I'm actually really bad at this. So, and this being dating. So,
I mean, my entire singlehood was a disaster.
I think it's
but
supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, you're not learning along the way.
Right.
So that's reason number two. And reason number three, I think it's become a pattern that you guys are learning about me that I just like meet all of my friends on the internet.
Yeah.
And Erica and I, we were like close before, like when last time we recorded, but now I just feel like you're a part of me.
No, now and like we'll get into all this more, but like something large happened in my life and you were literally one of the first 10 people I told because I was like, I need to tell Lana. So, you know, it's like before I was like kind of nervous. I was like, oh man, what if we don't like vibe like we think we're going to? And now it's just, you know, catching up with a friend.
Yeah. And for the record, guys, we still have not met in person.
No. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, we're still in a long distance internet relationship.
Yeah.
So
I love long distance relationships. So
speaking of, so last time you were here, you were talking about Denver guy who you met on a bachelorette trip.
Yes. A really good story. Met him on a bachelorette trip, whirlwind. He asked me to change my flights. I stayed. I was going to say we fell in love. Not necessarily. I really, really developed a really strong feelings for him. And right before I was on last time, he was about to come to a wedding with me. He came to the wedding, crushed it. Everyone in my family, all my friends loved him. We were together for 6 more weeks. And then we broke up. I know.
Sad. Aw, everybody with me. Aww.
Yeah. And like, I can talk
How
about
are we
it.
doing?
Yeah. I can talk about it like fine now. But literally, if you had asked me a month ago, I would have turned into tears. So we're doing good. We're doing good. We're doing good. It's been a long journey to get here. So I think if people are like, how is that possible? Ironically, you and I had taped the episode a couple, 6 weeks prior to it coming out. We literally broke up 4 days after it was released.
Yeah.
So
that was like, oh, good. This is awkward.
Perfect. No, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't regret anything I said. I don't regret how I handled any of the situation. I always want to move forward in my life with the same amount of like love that I moved forward with in that relationship. Honestly, it came down to long distance and yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? Like, how did the breakup begin?
So we never really fought. Like, weren't really a fighting couple. It was like the most. It was like, hey, could you text me more often? Because like we're in different cities, and that was getting challenging, I guess. But he had not made plans to come see me after a trip, and that was always my thing. Was like, I want to leave every trip with the next trip booked.
I would be the same. Completely understandable.
And kept putting it off. And I finally had to start kind of, I know what it was nagging, like kind of being like, hey, like, why haven't we booked this next trip? Like what's going on? And we actually had booked, I was going out there like a month later, but he was supposed to come to me in between those times. And ultimately, I don't, you say what happened? I don't know. Because we were kind of going back and forth about the trip. And then I answer he texts me one Friday and was like, oh, you're already home from work? And I was like, yep. And he FaceTimes me and just says, like, literally, I'm like, blah, 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 like going on my FaceTime. And he's like, hey, I can't do a long distance relationship. And I'm not a speechless person. I just sat there in silence for probably 45 seconds, which has to be the scariest reaction from someone like me. And then it ended up being a 5-hour FaceTime of breaking up, which I do not recommend.
What happened in those 5 hours? As I'm curious, because I also have been broken up over FaceTime.
Yeah.
Twice, actually.
God. Me too, actually. This is my second. With the one was with a different person. It was a lot of trying to figure out on my end, I think, how I could have fixed it. And it just, we're realizing that like, he was like, it's not you. It doesn't have to do with you. It doesn't have to do with our relationship. It's the fact that he's like, I'm not someone who can be in a long distance relationship. He had a lot of like, I think reality checks in the time between we became official, because we did become official. Remember in that episode, I was like, if he's not my boyfriend, he was. At the wedding is when it happened, and it was like in between that wedding and becoming official and like being like, let's really do this, and the time we broke up. I think he had a lot of like work reality checks with how little he was actually going to be able to travel. He had some life stuff that I won't get into because it's his personal stuff that I think just kind of made him realize he wasn't going to be ready to move within a year. And he didn't feel like we were going to be able to see each other enough to the point where he would be comfortable with me ever saying like, I'm ready to move. Do I think that is a little bit of a cop-out? 100%. I think at the end of the day, he wasn't ready. He thought he was. He wasn't. And it's such a bummer because I was so all in. Like, I had never been more ready for something in my life. And yeah, it's just like, it was literally like, it felt like right person, wrong time. And I don't know if I believe in that, but that's what it felt like.
It's so tough because I've been there too, where like I was 100% in. In fact, I would have been 200% in if it could overcompensate and make up for their being 80% or their being 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm like, well, that's okay. Like I will do the extra. I will go the extra mile. I will get on the plane 3 times for every 1 time that you do. And in reality, that's not fair. And that's not right. And that will never work. No. And that's the shitty part. Like no matter how badly you want it to work, it takes 2 to tango.
And I give him my friends listening to this will be like, stop giving him credit. But the thing is, he was a great human. There's nothing like, he handled it very maturely. And I give him credit because he could have let me continue to fly out there and make it really easy for him. There was not, not to this day, we don't speak, but he like was like, there is no one else. This isn't about anyone else. I promise. Like, I'm not dating. I don't want to date. Like, this isn't about that. And so, he could have had me come out twice a month. I totally would have done it. Finances weren't the issue on that end. So like, we could have done that and he could have just gone along and let me totally fall in love. But it was like the week of the breakup, he just knew he couldn't handle it and he couldn't see it going long term. And I really am thankful that he was like, I'm going to end this before we both get hurt even more.
And that's something that it's tough to do, but it is that type of situation where the longer he would have put it off for, the more it would have hurt you.
Oh my gosh. I was distraught at the time it happened and it was early on. So I'm really thankful to him. And I don't know if I've actually like said those words to him, like, hey, I'm really thankful that you did this when you did, because I was so hurt when it happened. But it's just proof. And looking back at that time, it makes me really happy that I believe I'm choosing better people for myself now, because that was such a mature way to handle things. Like at the end of the day, we both were mature adults in the relationship. And that's something I hadn't really experienced before.
Yeah. And that is amazing to look back and realize that. And I'm curious, though it was short-lived, though it didn't end the way you wanted it to, what did you learn from this experience?
Oh, I do not know.
Let me say something. The reason I ask this is because I once was really struggling to get over somebody. Like months had gone by and I was still like crying about this guy every day. And I got coffee with this person who was a coworker at the time. And I was like, just don't know why I can't start to move on. Like, I feel like so much time has gone by and I've made zero progress. And she said something so profound to me. And she said, well, did you figure out what you learned from the relationship yet? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you're not going to be able to fully move on until you figure that out. And that was like,
that's an interesting way to look at it. Because often we don't think of it that way. We just are able to look back a couple years later and be like, oh, I learned, these are the red flags or whatever.
Right.
I think I learned more about myself. Like I learned about the ability or the capacity I have to love is like, I just had been so poorly treated before that I wasn't sure how much I had to give to people. And turns out it's still all of it. No one took anything away from me. But something that in the healing I learned, because I do think I've started to move on and like I'm fully open to trying to date. Well,
Yeah, you've gone on dates.
Yeah, I've gone on dates. I'm kind of taking a breather right now because it was getting rough, but I'm open to meeting someone in the wild, whatever it is. But the thing in healing that I learned that I had never been able to give up the control of in past breakups before was like, if someday it's meant to be, then someday it's meant to be. If he wants to walk back into my life, he can figure out how to do that. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for it. And I'm also not going to try and force it because that's not reality. So maybe I still have things to learn from the relationship. Oh, well, also maybe not move so fast. I think that was maybe something I need to learn in general. But I learned a lot about handling breakups in a more healthy way. And like, my God, I hope I never have to go through another one. But I think it's a good thing to know how to do.
Yeah. And how to do gracefully.
Yeah. And there were moments of non-grace in this one. Like there were those few, but
yeah,
much better than in the past.
You didn't like get on another plane to Denver to go like knock at his door and say
no.
Let's make this work.
Right. No. The most I did was be like, we should see each other, and he was like, we can't. No. Like, he was like, it was never the seeing each other that was the problem. It was the being apart. And I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess thinking about the like taking it slower, I'm someone who falls instantly. And as much as I think I like that about myself, I think it's good to be like open and give your heart and like not be so fearful.
Yeah.
I also think you can do both at the same time. You can be like, oh man, here we go. We're slipping down the slope, but also hold on to some of your own control of what's happening and make sure you're reading all the signs and make sure that you're both ready before fully diving in and meeting your family.
Absolutely. I also think it's beautiful that you can walk away from the situation and say like, I'm proud of how I handled this. And I now know what it's like to be treated well.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I took away once that my coworker had said that to me. Like, that's what I was able to take away was I now know how I want to be treated, even though towards the end, it wasn't how I wanted to be treated, but that's because it was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
But I learned what it was like to actually be treated by somebody who gives a shit and somebody who wanted me to be happy and wanted to treat me the way I deserved. And that when I realized that, I was like, wow, okay, now I know what I won't accept because I now know what it's like to have that.
And I think that almost makes the getting over so hard because you're like, no, but it was this incredible thing. It was this like beautiful, but and now I know, but what if I never get it again is something I ask myself.
And it's challenging to think like, well, this person at one point did want to give me that. Mm-hmm. What changed to make them not? Yeah. And sometimes it's just life.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And you didn't change and I didn't change. And sometimes it just isn't like meant to be, or it isn't meant to be in that moment.
Right. And currently I'm in the like, maybe it just wasn't meant to be now space. And I think in another month, I'll be even further from it because I don't think it's necessarily healthy to truly feel like, no, that was here. Actually, I have a question for you. Do you believe in like soulmates in terms of the one?
I don't. Okay. Here's the thing. And I think I used to like the idea of the one. Yeah. Especially like with certain people I'd meet, I'd be like, they're the one. Like we were meant to be together. Like I think that there are different ones at different points in your life.
Yes.
And it's about finding the one at the point in your life where you're ready and they're also ready and you're both in the right place and it can work. There couldn't possibly be one human being on this planet made for me because if I lived in Mississippi, I'm not going to meet the one person that was made for me if I lived in Istanbul.
Right.
There's
Right?
not one human
There's
being.
no way.
Like,
I know.
it's not like me and this person's souls were meant to meet on this subway platform when we're both traveling and backpacking through Europe, which I would never
Right.
do to be like, like there is not one person on this planet for me,
Right.
but I found the person for me that I love so much and have created a amazing partnership and life with. But we always say, Jake and I always say, had we met 6 months before, it would not have worked out.
Yes. Yes. So I was talking to my therapist about this, and she was saying, she's like, because I'm like a very hopeless romantic. Like, I want to have the story. And that was part of why this breakup was so
Yep.
hard. Is I was like, this was the best story. How could this
Best
not
meet
be the
cute.
one? And it was literally the best meet cute of my life, and probably always will be, and that's fine. But then we were talking about like the concept of that takes all the power away from you because it makes you stay in situations of being like, no, this is my one. And it's like, no, it's not the one. So that is also something I've learned recently is like, it doesn't mean it was a bad relationship. It doesn't mean it didn't mean anything. They could be the love of your life in the sense of the most like powerful, passionate, fiery love, but they still aren't the person you want to share your life with.
Yeah. Actually, my a former therapist of mine, he would always tell me because and I saw him when I was going through like one of my really tough breakups, and I would talk about like how could I ever like not love this person in hindsight, or like
Mm-hmm.
this person's so meaningful to me, like but we're not ending up together, like what do I do with that? He's like, I love my wife, but there are also people who I will always have love for,
Yes.
and who I will always love, but they're not my wife who I'm in love with.
Yeah.
And
And they're not the
you're
person
allowed
that
to
you want
have
to,
that.
yeah.
Yes,
Like they're not
share
the
your
person you
life
want to
with.
share your life with, build a life with, have kids with.
Yeah.
Like, and I think taking some of that power out of like former relationships, really, he's the only one I look back and I'm like, what if I missed the boat? And it's like, no, you're never going to miss the boat because
Right. Well, it's so new. Like now I don't look back at those people like that. I look back at those people like, wow, they fucking ruined my life.
Yeah.
But okay.
I hope I never.
Obviously Denver guy did not.
No, he didn't ruin my
No
life.
life ruining here.
No, but right. When we're like so caught up in things, we're like, oh my God, how could we ever get over it? And it's like,
Yeah.
you just do. Like you just figure it out, I guess. I don't remember why I asked about soulmates, but it was
Just on your
I
mind.
don't know.
You
Yeah,
just
well,
wanted
it
to
was
know.
just it was somewhere in an answer to something, and I don't know. But it is such a weird concept, and it's a new concept for me to think about. Like that's just taking away your own power.
Do you still believe, because this was a big topic of our previous episode, do you still believe you find love when you least expect it?
Remember what I said? I was like, I hate, as a single person, you hate hearing that. I believe it's harder for you to find it when you're really actively looking for it. So yes, I think if you need it, Barkley's part of the chat now. I think if you need a relationship, that probably means you actually really need to work on something else. And so once you get to the point of not needing it and it just enters your life, yeah, honestly. So I'm working on me right now because I just know that like I can't do it without being really happy with me.
I love that. And I think there is so much truth to what you had said before, where it's like you met him when you were being completely shamelessly yourself.
Yes.
Being silly with your friends out on a bachelorette party, not having any expectation. You didn't go to the bar that night saying, I want to meet someone. You went and you were completely wholeheartedly yourself. And that's what attracted somebody to you.
Right. And honestly, like deep dark secret here, I had like just gotten another guy's number and was like texting him to come meet us at that bar when I met Denver guy. Like there was it was nothing. So, and I've thought about that recently. I went out last weekend and I was like kind of like went out with like maybe I'll meet someone. It's like that's not how that works. It's just not.
You're
out
never
and
gonna
have
meet
fun.
someone. You're never going to meet someone with that mindset of, I want to meet someone tonight.
No, unless it's like literally just a hookup. Like, sure, you can kind of make that happen. But like, it's getting too old for that, you know?
I want us to talk about something that I love this acronym and I had never heard it before, but you talked about it on your podcast. Guys,
An
go listen to Oversharing
acronym.
with Erica Shea. RSB,
Oh my
recently
God.
single behavior.
Oh my
Let's get
God.
into it.
RSB is such a journey. Okay. RSB, yeah, recently single behavior. There's so many forms of it, but it is that moment when you notice that someone has started posting like way more selfies or way more stories on their Instagram. And you're like, what's going on? And then you check their Instagram and you're like, all the photos of the boyfriend are deleted. Like, that is RSB. Men posting photos from the gym is major RSB. Cutting your hair. I literally chopped my hair off after the breakup. RSB. Getting bangs. Major RSB. And generally, just when you notice that someone is out and about a lot more, it's RSB. But I don't think RSB is a bad thing.
It's not. I think it's part of the journey.
It helps you move on. And it's like, for me, it was a really fun period. I had never been more drunk in my life than during my RSB period. And I am paying for that now. I'm literally like, okay, it's time to take a breather.
You're like, everyone else is going sober right now because it's trendy to become sober now. And you're just
and I was like,
out.
balls to the wall, baby. Also RSB is when you're like randomly making out with a lot of men. So I did that.
Are you saying that was a part of your journey?
Not making out
on a boat dressed in a Santa costume.
I kissed a man on a boat in a Santa costume, and I did not remember that it happened.
Dun dun dun.
My friends had to tell me about it.
Right there for you.
Yes. So I actually encourage RSB because also if what you need is a little more validation from people on Instagram, go ahead and get that validation. That's what Instagram basically is anyway, right? Like, post the hot selfies, look extra good, go out with your girls, let people tell you you're so hot. Like, we all need it sometimes.
It doesn't hurt anyone else for you to do that.
No, don't maybe don't sleep with a ton of people and unless
that could end up backfiring.
Right?
And,
like,
honestly,
that could
end up making you feel bad. That could make you feel bad about yourself.
Yes. Avoid things that make you feel bad about yourself. I also went on like 2 dates in my RSB period, and it was definitely too soon. None of them panned out into anything. One was awful. But it was nice to like feel that like putting myself out there energy again, and like, this is what it's like to have a nice conversation with a man again. So I encourage it. Just don't like jump into a new relationship or something like that.
I think there's something to that. And this is something that I experienced, and let me know if you had a similar response. But I went to drinks with somebody in my dark days after my brutal breakup. And it was like networking drinks that a friend set up. And we ended up like just hitting it off. And I couldn't tell him, like, is this just networking drinks? Are we flirting? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But it was like for 45 minutes straight, I didn't think of the guy who had just broken my heart. And I, at the same time, had this thought of like, wow, there are other guys out there and I'm gonna be okay.
Isn't that the best feeling? I wouldn't say I've like gone on a date that felt like that just yet. But one of my dates, have I told you the story of my worst date ever on text?
You told me about the one with the guy who you previously knew.
Oh, no, not
knew
that
of.
one. Okay. No, this guy was like, we texted for a couple of days. Actually, it was like a week leading up because it was right after Christmas. And so over Christmas, we had texted because I was out of town. Whatever, it gets pushed off. I just don't recommend texting for that long before because we like thought we knew each other. I sit down and I immediately am like, this is not it. And then it just progressively gets worse. He's like a brand snob. He's like making jokes about his money, which is just not me. I'm just not into that. And then leaving the date, I'd made it very clear I was ready to go home. And then we're walking in the car and he's like, well, do you want to go somewhere else and get another drink? And I'm like, no, like I've made this very clear. And then he beeps his car and goes, well, do you want to check out my car then? And I was like, no. Like, no. And it was a nice car, which is why he wanted to show it off. But I'm like, I'm good. I literally said, I laughed and said no and got in my car and left. Because I was like, what? And we never spoke again. So That was good.
Do you want to come check out my car instead or what?
Like, I also want to point out to any man who's listening to this, maybe that's what you think is a good line. Maybe the girl's really into
No,
cars.
it's not. It's a terrible line. Do not drop that line unless she has blatantly expressed her interest in cars.
Your car.
She doesn't give a shit.
And also, do you want to check out my car is either I'm going to kill you, I'm going to try and make a move on you, and maybe that's not the time. Or truly, do you want to check out my car? Which the answer is no. So, like, the three options are bad.
I would rather do anything than check out your car. Literally, quite anything.
Yeah. So I left.
I'd rather sit in traffic for 45 minutes at a red light that is just not changing, but be afraid to go through the red light, even though there are no cars coming, just because I'm afraid that I'm going to get in trouble for going through the red light that's broken. Then look at your car.
That was very well put. Yeah. So no, I haven't felt that like excitement for a guy. Well, I had like a brief excitement for a guy, which is no longer. But I do realize, like, I recognize that there's good guys out there still, maybe, and I'm just still trying to find them.
It's a journey.
It is, but that is the best feeling when you're out and about and you're like, that guy's hot, and then you're like, did I just say that to myself? Like, did I just
and you're like,
acknowledge that?
Yeah, and then it's like, wait, I'm allowed to say this. I'm single. Ooh, okay. Maybe he's thinking this about me. Like, okay, this is fun.
Yeah, that is a fun feeling to bounce back with.
Well, many more feelings like that to be had in your future.
God, please send them my way.
I want to get into listener questions.
Okay.
Because I love the Erica advice. And I feel like you have a lot of not only hindsight, but like you have learned a lot from your own dating experiences.
Yes.
And I just love your input. So
thank you.
The first one I have is, and this is on the topic of breakups.
Okay.
Is it ever okay to acknowledge you made a mistake by breaking up with somebody?
Oof. I guess only if you fully intend to be ready to be in a relationship with them. But if you're like 10 years down the road and one or both of you are married or with new partners, no, because that's not fair to your partner. It's not fair to their partner. And it's not going to do any good unless you are both single and you're like, we should be together.
I agree.
Also, for the record, acknowledge to yourself and acknowledge to people is different. You can acknowledge anything to yourself.
Yeah. I think it's important to like have that awareness to acknowledge it to yourself. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to accept that. But yeah, if you recognize that that person is completely moved on and living their life, maybe it's unfair and selfish to insert yourself back in.
Right.
But if you know that they're single, if you know that, you know, they wish things went differently, it's okay to reach out and acknowledge that. But you have to really be careful with your expectations with doing that. Are you doing it because you genuinely just want to get that off your chest and let them know? Or are you doing it with the intent of, well, maybe they will say, I miss you and I want you back. And then you're put in the position, to your point that you started with, like, unless you are 1000% like you want to be in a relationship with this person now. Because what if you say that and they actually do want you back? And then suddenly you're like, oh, but I just wanted you to know I made a mistake. Like, I'm still not there. You know, you really have to be careful.
Like, if any of my exes came to me today, obviously I'm single, right? So they have in what we just said, the right to. But if any of them came to me today and were like, I made a mistake, but I'm not ready, I would literally hunt them down and kick them really hard in the shins. Like, I wouldn't kill them, but like that would be not okay.
Yeah. It's not fair. It's like you already had to go through the process of grieving the relationship and moving on and healing from it. So yeah, I think it really depends, but you have to figure out your expectations and your reasoning for it.
For sure.
Another one on the topic of breakups, and this came in from a Instagram Q&A last week, and I didn't get to answer it during the Q&A, but I really wanted to. I want to ask my ex to meet. I broke up with him around 4.5 years ago. It feels like he's the one that got away.
4.5 years? Okay, there's a couple things here. If you have any form of contact, if there's Instagram story replies, occasional texts, happy birthdays, although Alana tells you never ever text an ex their happy birthday. If there is some communication, I think it would be okay. However, again, if they're in a relationship, back the F off. It's not fair. But if they're not, and there's some communication, 4.5 years is a really long time. I just think you're probably romanticizing the idea of that relationship more than what it actually could be at this point. But I'm trying to think if I've hung out with exes years later. Not necessarily, but I don't think it's always a bad thing. I just think you better not expect it to be like you getting back together.
Yeah. I've thought about this one a lot. And I feel like it almost feels like it's something you need to get off your chest.
Okay.
If you're feeling this, like if you can't stop thinking about it, I almost think like seeing them, like asking to meet for coffee or a walk or lunch, like it might actually make you realize that they're not the one that got away.
Right. They're not this person that you put on a pedestal.
Because you've been romanticizing them, to your point,
Right.
for 4.5 years now. And again, like if you're single 4.5 years later, maybe part of that is like, well, maybe if I had not broken up with this person, then I would still be with them and I wouldn't be single and having to deal with modern dating and dating apps and all this shit that I hate.
Yeah.
But do you believe in the one that got away?
I believe I can be the one that got away.
Ow.
I don't really believe that I have one that got away because I don't really let people go unless I'm really ready to. So I don't know. I think that people make decisions that they truly believe are right. And if at some point you really, really believed that was right and it's like still haunting you,
Yeah.
try to think back to why you broke up with them. But what's your stance on, like, say this person's ex is in a relationship? Do you still think that maybe they should no? Yeah. Because like
write it down in a letter that you don't send.
Right.
Like get it out of your system, whatever way you need. But it's not fair to them.
No. And it's not fair to their partner.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not fair to you.
I know. Like, just let it go. At that point, just let it go. I think it's like that point goes all the way back to like what we talked about earlier. Is like you're probably sitting there thinking like this was my one, and it's like it's not your one. If it wasn't meant to be, or if it was meant to be, you'd figure it out by now. But it's not your one, so move on.
Find your now one.
Find your new one.
Okay. What do I do if I keep matching with the same girl and she never responds? I feel like this is a situation we've all been in.
Yeah,
I know I have. Like with very specific people on dating apps where I would see them on every app and repeatedly match with them. And then there would be no conversation.
This one guy likes me likes me on Hinge. I mean, once a month. It's like getting to the point where I'm like, we've messaged once and he was so annoying that I unmatched him. And now he's still like, I don't think he remembers. So I said to you like, oh, I'm taking a break from dating. That's not entirely true. I swipe a little bit and I just matched with a guy 2 nights ago. And I realized I was like, we've matched before. So I just messaged him and was like, I think we've matched somewhere else before. And he was like, yeah, I thought you looked familiar. I went back to so that was on Bumble. I went back to my Hinge and I had just never responded to a message like without thinking about it. So then I told him that. I was like, it looks like I was the last one who didn't answer. So let's like, hope you can forgive me, whatever. So I think if you keep matching, if you keep messaging, then she's probably just not interested. But
yeah, I mean, look, Jake and I had matched a few times before we actually started talking.
I know, and this blows my mind.
No, me too. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
So you guys like look at your matches and the people you haven't messaged or responded to.
Yeah, but, I wish I had responded to this guy a month ago versus now. Yeah.
I think if you continuously match with somebody and you are messaging them and they never respond, don't waste your time anymore.
Don't waste your likes.
Don't waste your likes.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste your likes. Like, it's just not worth it. I think it's a different situation if you keep matching with somebody and nobody's said anything, or like you've gotten into conversations and they've never turned into a date. What I would do the next time you match with them is just say this one line. Say something like, are we going to keep doing this or should we finally grab a drink?
Yes. Brilliant. Love it.
And if they play dumb and they're like, doing what? You know
like,
what? They finally respond. You could be like, oh, I think we've matched a few times.
Right. Great. You got
Like,
a response out of
yeah.
them. You can see what comes from it now. But
Exactly.
it is a
Something
weird
direct
game.
of like, let's quit doing this and like,
Right.
let's go see if we like each other in person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just move on.
Don't waste
You
more
don't
of your
know them,
time.
like, don't waste. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one. Actually, there was a lot of breakup themes here.
Perfect.
I had my heart broken 7 years ago, and I still wish things had turned out differently. Maybe that's lame, but what do I do?
I mean, I wish all my relationships that ended did end differently. Not necessarily that I'm still with them, but the breakups were brutal, or I got cheated on, or, all the things. So I think you just have to accept that, like, it is what it is. However it ended probably sucked, but you are better than letting yourself sit like this for the rest of your life. And maybe you write a letter to yourself, to your 7 years ago self, and be like, here's all the things that are going to change for you in those 7 years. Here's all the ways your life is going to improve. And focus on those things now. And then also maybe focus on figuring out how to put yourself out there more and like have more fun, because maybe you're just like lacking something that was happening in your life at that time, but focus on the things that have changed for the better.
Yeah, I love that idea of writing a letter to yourself. Like, here's all the things that are going to happen over the next 7 years.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself. Like, we spend so much time and energy talking badly to ourselves because of our relationship status or because it didn't work out with this person who we thought was incredible. And we put so much emphasis on putting other people on pedestals, but we never put ourselves on a pedestal. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably not, here's the thing, you're not the same person that you were 7 years ago.
And nor are they.
Yeah, nor are they. And so you might be thinking like they are this like godly figure that can do no wrong, that even though they broke your heart, they're still this perfect specimen. You have to change that narrative, and you have to think back to all of the things that weren't working about it, whether it's 7 years ago or 7 days ago or 7 weeks ago. Like, there's a reason it didn't work out.
Right.
And you probably became an even better version of yourself in your healing process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, we all like learn things about ourselves. We all grow in such a good way. Unless you've like really, I don't know what you would have done that would have gone negative. So you just have to really focus on the positives and just let it go from there. I know letting it go is really hard, but I think the more that you can just like focus on what makes you happy without them, the better off you are.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a cute one. I try to flirt more, but then I panic and forget how to speak. What do I do?
Oh, I'm not the queen of this. I'm so mean to every man that I try to flirt with. I'm just mean.
You're mean?
I'm mean. I don't know how to be nice.
So funny, because I would have thought you'd be like a flirty girl. But maybe you flirt by being mean.
I was saying I might be a flirty girl, but I think I'm just mean to everyone.
Does that work?
It has, yeah. And then sometimes it backfires, and people will ask my friends like, "Hey, did I piss your friend off?" And they're like, "Oh, no, she just thinks you're cute." I don't know how. Can you give me flirting lessons? Do you have any tips?
Well, here's what I would say is, if this person's thing specifically said like, then I panic and forget how to speak when I try and flirt more, I would focus less on the speaking. Like, talk how you normally would. Pretend they're a friend. Like, talk the way you would talk. Don't focus on like adding words in or phrasing things differently or talking about certain subjects. Like, make it more about your body language. Are you like turning towards them? Are your arms crossed or are they open? Like, make sure your phone is away. Like, you can play with your hair. You can like laugh and touch their knee. Like, focus more on that, because people pick up on that.
So
and
true.
They'll likely reciprocate it, which will make you feel even more comfortable in it. And you won't even be thinking about what you're saying because it'll just be flowing.
Yeah, exactly. Also, no, this is not a move I recommend.
Oh, okay. What not to do? What not to do? Let's hear it.
No,
just as important.
It has worked for me almost every time. Sometimes you just got to be direct. I have literally looked people in the eyes and been like, "So are you going to kiss me?" And they're always like,
I've said that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's too often that I do this. But it always works. So
what works.
When you get to the point where you're doing the body language and they're reciprocating, go in for the kill, baby.
I mean, hey, why not? I actually like that. I like
Yeah.
being direct. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is something, and I actually don't know, maybe I've told this on the podcast. I mentioned that I made the first move with kissing Jake.
Oh,
It
you
was
did?
the end of our second date. So I kissed him. I
Okay.
made that move. Said I love you first. And I said to him, "Are you going to ask me to be your girlfriend already or what?"
To which he thought you were.
To which he thought I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So, but
So yeah,
it was
you
the
really
end.
like pushed the pedal
Yeah.
forward.
It was the end of our first date. Sorry, we didn't kiss on the first date.
Okay.
And then it was the end of our second date and we had not kissed yet. And we had talked about our first kisses and how they happen, not with each other, like in
Oh,
life.
I was like, what?
And no, we didn't talk about the first kiss that the two of us had not yet shared.
Yeah, I was
No.
like, weird.
But
Okay.
he had told me how like he was at sleepaway camp or something, and he like did that like joking line where it's like, if you were a pirate, would your parrot be on this shoulder or that shoulder? And like how he like stretched his arm out to like tap the other shoulder and then like kissed.
Okay.
And so it's literally, he came over to my apartment for our second date because our first date was 20 degrees out in the cold. It was during COVID. We had to eat
Yes.
outside at restaurants. It was February. So we came over and we're like he's getting his coat on, like ordered the Uber and we still
No.
haven't kissed. And I'm like, something's
We
got to
have to.
happen here.
Yeah.
Like I'm going away for 3 weeks. I'm not going to see this guy.
Like if I don't kiss him now, it's never gonna happen.
Exactly. So I literally said, I was like, before you go, I have a question for you. And he's like, what? And I'm like, if you were a pirate, would your parrot be
No.
on this shoulder or this? And I did it. And then I like leaned in and kissed him.
That's
So
the cutest. No, you didn't tell me this. This is so cute.
I don't think
Oh
I've
my
ever
God.
talked about it on the podcast.
Oh my God. I love that.
Like I'm
See,
kind of adorable.
yes, you are. See, that's way better flirting than me. I'm just like, well, we gonna do this or what? Like, I don't have any game, but that's adorable.
So you can try that line, anybody, if you're
Yeah.
struggling to
Go with Alana's line. Be like,
find that moment.
yeah.
And that's something, a friend of mine just went on a third date with somebody and they haven't kissed yet. And she's like confused about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Like sometimes people wait really long to find like the perfect moment. And there isn't a perfect moment,
No.
especially like if you're sharing a cab home, if you finish at a restaurant and you're getting a taxi, like suddenly the taxi's there, your Uber is there. And then what are you going to like awkwardly make out outside the car? Like it's awkward. Are you going to do it on a street corner? Like we have all done it, but it's really freaking awkward.
This is you are such a New York girl. If you're sharing a cab home, if you're waiting for a taxi, I was like, sorry,
Well,
those
these are New
what
York
now?
things. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. If you're walking to the car in the parking lot, it's like,
Or
are you
you're
awkwardly going to
calling
like,
an Uber or
Right.
yeah. What are you
it's
gonna do?
awkward. I mean,
Um,
I've had this, I got made fun of for this, but like, I think I once gave an example, like I've been walked home before and then it's like my doormen were watching.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
also
that's
a New York
freaking
thing.
awkward.
Yeah, no, that is awkward because then you're like, then someone just saw like the stumble of it. Like, it is what it is.
So point being, there isn't always a moment. You just
No.
have to make the moment.
You just go for it.
You
My
just gotta
first
do it.
kiss ever was I was 15 or 16. I was in my best friend's house with my then boyfriend, and it was on Taylor Swift's birthday. And it was like,
Wow.
it's finally just time to do it. Are you a kiss on a first date person? Like, do you believe it's a good thing or a bad thing? Or a nothing
I think
thing?
neither here nor there. It's
Okay.
nothing. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, I'm not like, we didn't kiss, it's doomed. They're like
Okay.
similar thing. Like there just wasn't the moment, or neither of us were like bold enough to make the move.
Right.
I've had great first dates where we did kiss. I've had great first dates where we didn't kiss. I've had horrible first dates where they tried to kiss me and I felt really awkward, so I kissed them back.
Right. I hate when that happens. Yeah.
And I even had a guy say I'd really like to kiss you if that's okay.
Did you say
And
no?
like I didn't have it in me to say no, so I was like, of course.
Oh no, I'd be like, I don't know. I'd be like, I take it slow, even though I don't.
Yeah, like I feel
but
like we just spent 2 hours together. Like you just bought me like 2 cocktails. Like you spent $100 on this night, and like you walked me to my subway stop. Like who am I to say no?
I mean,
But here's the
you
problem.
are allowed to.
No, I know, but then here's the problem: is then after when I get the text of like I'd love to see you again, then
Yes.
my no is more me. It's like it hurts more probably.
And it's confusing. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like definitely someone. I don't know a first date that I haven't kissed on. In my adult life, at least. Like, to me, I'm like, that's a good sign of a good first date. A lot of dates after, though, that I've been ghosted, even after they kissed me, have been like, oh, thank goodness. Like, I mean, so it's not really a good
It's
indicator.
not a
But
yeah,
to
telltale
have
sign.
Jake, who was on your podcast, not your boyfriend, Jake, he was like, I don't really think a first date kiss means anything. And I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah, I think it either happens or it doesn't.
yeah.
It's so funny because also nobody asked about kissing and we just
And
had a
somehow
10-minute
here we are.
conversation about
Yeah.
it. But okay. I'm confused. A guy asked for a second date on the first date. We set it up, had to cancel. He said he'll tell me when he sees me next. Wait. Said he'll tell me when he sees me
Why?
next. Okay, so he had to cancel, said he'll like reach out again. She said, okay, let me know what you're thinking. And he said, sounds good. And then nothing. So they were on the first date. He asked for a second date. Then he had to cancel, said he'll reschedule. She said, okay, let me know when. And then he never rescheduled.
I think that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And it's either the guy notices they're not ready, or someone's re-entered their life, or they matched with someone else on a dating app. Like, I don't think
it's likely not about you.
No, and it almost never has to do with you, honestly.
Yeah.
It sucks. I would say if you've literally not reached out since, feel free to send one more like, hey, do you still want to get together sometime?
Totally.
But frankly, if he wanted to, and I'm not saying the saying that you hate, I'm saying
your mouth,
if he wanted to see you again, he wouldn't have just forgotten. But sometimes men need a little push, so I'm not against reaching out one more time.
I'd say reach out one more time, but if you already have, then move on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more.
Okay.
This isn't a question, but it's just relatable. It says, feeling like I'm never, in all caps, never going to find my person.
Oh, when I tell you I was texting my best friend last night and I said, are we sure that I'm not going to be alone forever? That was just all I said. I say that to her like twice a week. That feeling sucks. And I don't really have a solution for that. I literally have started to think about the next 10 years of my life. And this is like kind of sad, but I'm like, if I never find my partner, if it just isn't working out for me, I'll move near one of my sisters. I'll move near one of my best friends, and they will be my family, and their kids will be part of my life, and that'll be that. Like, I've gotten to the point of like almost accepting that like maybe it's not going to happen for me. This is so sad. I'm so sorry. But I'm like, I have to figure out how I can be okay with it, with myself, really, if it doesn't come about. So
yeah. And here's the thing is I think figuring that out is a really important piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to not putting too much pressure on yourself, on a night out, on a date, on a match, on a like.
On a soulmate.
Yeah, on a soulmate. And I mean, here's the thing. It's like, that's the most relatable statement in the world. Like, feeling like I'm never going to find my person. Like, I thought that.
You probably think that up until the moment.
95% of my thoughts were that.
Yes. And then it all changes in a day. Like, it literally can change in a day. And
all it takes is one.
Right. I was actually just DMing, and not even someone I know very well, but we were talking about, I posted something on my story that was like, friends are soulmates too. And she had this story about, friendships where they've like really shown up for her in times that her family didn't. And, or the person's partner didn't. And I'm like, yeah, like at the end of the day, as long as you have like great people in your life and you live for yourself, and like, I've come to terms with the fact that I would like to have children by myself. If that's what I need to do, then that's okay. And accepting that has been like a really big burden off my shoulders, because it's like, okay, if a man doesn't enter the picture soon enough for me to have kids, then I find my own path. And guess what? He's probably going to show up at some point when I'm like 8 months pregnant. And like, it's just one of those things where you have to accept like the hilarity of the universe. And I think being okay with that, I'm not really okay with that, but I'm like, it's an option.
It's an
and
option.
having the option out there in your head may help.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't have said that better. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
For-
Yeah. It was kind of like a weird emotional thing to say out loud. And then I said it out loud to my best friend, kind of like in passing.
Yeah.
Because one of my best friends is freezing her eggs.
Mm.
Not because she's single, she's with her partner, but she's like, we don't necessarily know if we want kids, like that whole thing. So I'm going to
Yeah.
freeze my eggs. And I was like, yeah, if I hit 35, I'm going to start figuring out my options because that's
Yeah.
only 5 years away now. And once I said it out loud, it was like, huh, that actually doesn't feel so bad to say.
This is going to sound really weird, like so weird, but I feel like you and Jake the producer, Jake Tuff, would be those friends that have that, like, if we're both still single at 40, like, let's just do it.
He has literally asked me to marry him. So, and we always joke, like, we're in a group chat with other friends and I'll like get home from a date or something and be like, everything sucks. And he'll be like, why won't you date me? Like, I think joking, but I would murder that man if he was the children to my father. Or what? No, if he was the father to my children, because he'd be like, let's make a funny video. And I'd be like, they need to go to school.
Oh my God. I mean, that doesn't sound like the worst problem in the world.
No, it doesn't. But that's hilarious you just said that. Yeah, because this like
I'm like, this is either going to be exactly it or she's going to be like, never.
No,
which kind of was both.
Yeah, somehow both. People have said that. He's said that. But
so
I really, no offense, Jake, I love you. I hope it doesn't come to that.
Have you ever tried doing or thought about doing like a background? If you guys didn't know this, if you're new to Erica, should have started with this. Erica's on the radio in San Diego. She's on their morning show,
Yes.
Gina and Frankie in the morning. Have you ever thought about doing like a speed dating segment or like Erica wants to go on dates? Like if you're between this age, like, yeah.
We haven't necessarily yet. I mean, I moved here and within 3 months met Denver guy and then have kind of been in the aftermath of that up until recently. We just kind of recently started being open about my dating life again, but open to it. But I don't know how to say this without like shitting on radio, but some of the demographic listening might not be my dude, because every time I go on dates and guys are like, oh, what do you do? And I tell them, they're like, that's cool, I don't listen to the radio. And I'm like, you should. It's actually good stuff on there.
Think about someone who's just commuting to work every day, driving in their car, they put the radio on.
Totally. And I have a lot of like girlfriends who commute here who listen before they were friends with me. So like,
there you go. You never know.
Maybe they have a friend.
Maybe.
These are, I like the idea. I like where your head's at. Okay.
Well, we'll come up. We'll finesse it.
Yeah. We'll perfect it.
Okay. To close this out, I don't want to ask you what your favorite piece of dating advice is because you've already answered that so beautifully the last time you were here.
Thank you.
But
wait, can I addendum that?
Yes, you can.
Remember how I talked about how my sister was divorced and she had given me the best advice?
Yes.
She is recently engaged. So she went through a divorce really young and then met the love of her life and is getting married next year. So really exciting. So there is hope for everyone out there, no matter what situation you're in. What was your last question going to be?
I was thinking something along the lines of, what would you, Erica, today tell Erica a few months ago, the second you hung up that FaceTime of being broken up with?
First of all, your face is not going to fall off. I had cried so much it felt like my head was going to explode.
I thought you were telling me my face isn't going to fall off from your answer.
Oh, no.
And then you continued, I'm like, that makes more sense.
In the moment, I literally thought my entire face was going to come off of my head. It was so painful. I was in a lot of pain. You, first of all, will be okay. But also just embrace this next couple months because you're going to have some of the most fun. I literally had such a fun winter because I just like made really, really good friendships because I wasn't hung up on trying to fly to Denver every month, trying to schedule FaceTimes, trying to make sure I was home on certain weeknight or weekend nights because we wanted to have FaceTime dates. Like, I really was able to just kind of let go of everything I thought I knew my life was going to look like and just surrender to it. And it turned, I literally have like, on October 16th, I had 2 good friends here. And now I have like a solid girl group. I feel like every weekend is busy. I feel very filled. Like my cup is filled in all parts of my life except for my love life. And that's something that hopefully will come. And I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that way on the day that we broke up. So yeah, it gets better. It always does. And for any of those people who wrote in, like, you know, saying that they were still struggling, like, I think that's what happens when we just hold on to things for too long, because I've done that in past relationships and I've wondered why. And it's like this time, I think within 6 weeks or so, I hit that point of like, we'll figure it out if it's supposed to be. And if it's not supposed to be, we'll move on.
Yeah. And I think there's so much truth to like, you have to create closure for yourself because you're not always going to get it from someone else. And the longer you hold on, the more you're just breaking your own heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I hope to speak to him again someday, but that day's not today, you know, like there's still healing to be done and like moving on to be done before I could be okay with that.
Yeah.
So
Erica, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you so much. Oh man, I really every time I'm on here, I really overshare. So
I mean, that's what you do. Oversharing with Erica Shea. Which you guys is literally like my favorite podcast. I don't think you guys understand. Like
so nice.
It is so good. And I could not recommend it more highly. I was going to say for you to shout out where everybody can find you, but go listen to Oversharing with Erica Shea wherever you listen to podcasts. Where else can people find you?
On all socials, I'm Erica Shea with 3 A's at the end. Shea spelled S-H-E-A, not S-H-A-E, just for people wondering.
Like Shea. Oh, is S-H-A-E Shea Butter?
I don't think so. I think that there's just 2 ways to spell it. So Erica Shea with 3 A's at the end.
Erica Shea.
Yeah. And if you're in San Diego, listen to Channel 9 through 3. Gina and Frankie in the mornings. I'm on there.
Amazing. And actually, I want your advice on this. I've been trying to figure out a closing line, like how to just do my outro for seeing other people for 2 years and 1 month that I've had this podcast.
Okay.
And I finally thought of something. I was like in the shower the other day and I thought of something and I was like, oh my God. And Jake was like, no, that's so corny. And Cammie, my editor, was like, that's amazing. So I'm going to try it for the first time.
Okay.
But then I want your response.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again, Erica. Blah, 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 blah. See you guys next time. Until then, keep seeing other people.
Freaking adorable.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was going to say, it's like you either say, keep seeing other people or like.
At first I thought like until then I'll be seeing other people, but I want to tell you like I'll see you guys. We'll see each other next time. Until then, keep seeing other people.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it so much.
Great.
Now you've inspired me to end mine with like, thanks for oversharing.
Oh my God. I love that.
Or something.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Erica, everybody listening, thank you so much. Don't forget to give a 5-star rating and review. Share this episode with your friends, with your group chat. Share it on your story. Tag seeing other people. Tag Erica Shea with 3 A's.
That's right.
And I will see you next time. Until then, keep seeing other people.